Welcome to Whiskey Uncut. I'm your host, Paul, joined by James, as always.
Hey.
So, James, you brought to me this idea of doing a 90 proof whiskey episode.
90 proof or below.
90 proof or below.
Yeah. So basically the best lower proof whiskey that we can find.
Right, which is not really in our wheelhouse. Well, I guess it is more for me because I like scotch and everything, but on the bourbon side, certainly not in your wheelhouse of stuff you typically...
All this is going to taste like water. Every single... It's just which one tastes like better water.
Which one tastes like better water.
That's all it's going to be.
So the idea behind this is we have 16 90 proof or under bourbons. And in the interest of science, James, we are going to taste them all. Not all today.
No.
So
I still got one more I want to add. I'm trying to think of which one I want to add, but we're going to do 8.
Yeah. 8. But they're basically just flavored water.
They're just water. Yeah. So, I mean, and you think we normally do like 120, 130 proof things on here. So we'll figure it out. We just got to make sure that we don't always pick the last one because I think that's going to be kind of a giveaway.
Yeah.
That we had too much whiskey.
So the way this is going to work is we're going to do the first 2 rounds, the preliminary eliminations, as it's just going to be, we're going to know what we're tasting and stuff. The final we'll do as a blind.
Yes.
So,
yeah. And that will be down to the...
That'll be down to the wire. So we're going to do these 2 at a time, head to head. Because, right?
Just because.
Oh, wait. That'd be a lot of rounds.
We should have thought this out.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, because do we need 8 glasses each then to do this appropriately to actually taste it? I think we do. Do you want to grab us more glasses?
All right.
I should have enough over there. In the meantime, thanks, Liz, for tuning in. She says she's sipping on some store-pick Buffalo Trace. Liz, do you think that's actually any different? James and I are not convinced that store-pick Buffalo Trace is any different than standard Buffalo Trace. So I'd be interested to hear your thoughts. Corncake's tuning in. He says, howdy, fellas. Good to see you, Corncake. Yeah, so we're going to have a lot of glasses here. Keep this organized. My dog just hears us banging the glasses on the table.
You need one.
I need 2 more. I have 7. 8 glasses takes up so much space on the table. Am I out of glasses over there? Yeah. There should be, on the cabinet to the top right of the fridge. Wow, we've never used all the glasses in this room here before. So, so we're not gonna do news today, but this is probably gonna take a while, so it's a good thing. Now, on the other hand, we have the tasting kits just went out, April, May tasting kits. So for everyone who listened to our last episode, the Fiddler line was included in those. I think we have 1 spot left on Patreon if somebody else wants to be included in that. Let's see. Liz says she thinks maybe the store-pick Buffalo Trace tastes slightly different, but it might just be in her head.
It might be, yeah. So you get this. It's essentially a Glencairn.
What is this?
On a stick. That's the only thing you had.
No, I had a real Glencairn.
All right, so let's do this. So you want to read our lineup here so people know what we're going to be trying in round 1?
Yeah. So starting off, and again, this is all 90 proof or below, and this isn't an exhaustive list, but it is a lot of them. So we have Jim Beam White Label, Kentucky Straight Bourbon, and this is in a tiny, tiny bottle. Distilled and bottled by James B. Beam Distilling Company, Claremont, Frankfurt, Kentucky.
And so this you're looking at like a $20 bottle.
80 proof.
Yeah, it's straight, so it's 4 years, $20.
Yep. Now, going up against Jack Daniel's Old Number 7.
I thought it would be fun to put Jim Beam and JD like back to back in the same lineup. So here you're looking at, again, a $20 bottle, 4 to 7 years, kind of a similar age range, maybe a little bit older.
Yep. That's 80 proof also. Then we have Clyde's May,
Yeah,
85 proof.
This is one I decided to throw in. You'll find this in a lot of places, but it's not one you hear a whole lot about.
Original Alabama style whiskey.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting. I did a little bit of digging just to kind of get some stats for people. It's pretty high rye. You're looking at 55% corn and 30% rye on that one, and it's a little bit more expensive in the $30 to $35 range.
It also comes in a glass mini.
It is, which is super classy.
Which is super classy. Mm-hmm. Then we have Old Forester, 86 proof bourbon, and
this is one you can a lot of times find. Like these are 200 mils, right?
Yeah.
And they're plastic. You can still find it in a plastic.
Oh no, this is a 375.
It's a 375. Yeah. Okay. You can find these sometimes in plastic 750s anyway. This one's relatively inexpensive. You're looking at like $20-25, about a 4-year.
Yep. Then we have Evan Williams, Kentucky's first distiller, Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey, extra aged in oak.
Yeah. Which is really just, I mean, it's straight.
86 proof.
Yeah, it's straight. So it's at least 4 years old. Is probably right in that range. $15 to $20 a bottle.
I want to know what extra aged in oak means.
No idea. No.
As opposed to just
to less aged.
Less aged.
Yeah.
Then we have Four Roses small batch, 90 proof. And this is, again, glass mini.
And this is one I was expecting. This is one of the more expensive ones, too. This is $30 to $35 range. It's a blend of 4 of their recipes. So it's OBSK, OBS, or OESK, OBSO, and OESO. And this is a little bit older, too. Most things you find on even Four Roses small batch say it's somewhere in the 6 to 7 year range, $30-$35 a bottle.
Yep. Followed up by Eagle Rare, 10 years old.
Which we're not going to talk about because it's Eagle Rare.
Yep.
We've done
Everybody
shows
knows.
on Eagle Rare. But this should be the oldest one that we're going to try in this range. And historically speaking, Eagle Rare was what? $35-$40, somewhere in that range.
Yeah.
I have no idea what people would expect to pay for it now.
I think 80 is, I think that's like the standard, like, shelf price.
And it might, one of the ideas too was that, these should be at least somewhat readily available. So this might violate that standard. But at one point it was definitely pretty ubiquitous.
I have found with like the allocated stuff, it's very location dependent. Like I went to North Carolina last year and I walked in a liquor store and they literally had like 10 cases of Eagle Rare.
Really?
Just sitting there.
Wow.
Yeah. And they were all for $40.
Wow. That's impressive.
So like, and it's just like, and it was some random town in Georgia.
Did they have did they have like a limit 1 per customer sign?
No.
That always cracks me up when they do that. Because like every time I see that, I'm like, who in the hell would want to buy more than like a bottle anyway?
Well, anyone who's
some
going to flip it.
Clear the shelf and flip it.
Yeah. I offered Andrew Sims, friend of the show, to buy him some and bring him some back, but he said no.
He said no?
Yeah.
He said no to the perfect bourbon?
I know.
What the hell is wrong with Andrew Sims?
I'm pretty sure he had just bought a ton of stuff. Yeah. And then finally we have Peg Leg Porker, which is a Tennessee whiskey and Tennessee straight bourbon whiskey. So it's it's I don't know. It's interesting because they say it's then finished with our unique hickory charcoal filtering process, giving it the signature Peg Leg Porker taste. So,
and where's this distilled at?
Aged a minimum of 4 years. I don't know where it's distilled at.
I thought this was Dickel, but I could be wrong.
It might be, but it is a Tennessee straight bourbon whiskey. Dickel's from Tennessee, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it is. It's probably Dickel sourced, and then they're filtering it, kind of like JD, but it's through hickory charcoal. So anyway,
and I have no idea how readily available that is either. I've seen
that one's pretty available.
Yeah, I've seen it in a lot of places when you travel around. Again, it probably just depends on the region.
So we probably need to get to pouring these here in a second because
it's hard to get the caps off these plastic bottles.
Now, if any of these little minis make it to round 2, we'll have to go buy another one.
Yeah,
because we're not gonna have enough.
We're not gonna get much out of this. So out of these, like if you're looking at this lineup, I would assume that it's in my brain either Eagle Rare or the Four Roses small batch.
Whoa, you're making predictions? You can't make predictions in a non-blind
I've had so many of these. Like, I think the bias is part of the part of the fun here,
part of the
because
thing. Oh, we're the
I'm interested
label.
to see if anybody or if anything jumps out and wins.
We got to keep these in order, or else we will forget which one is which.
That's a good point. Yeah.
So here's the thing: of these, I have not had the Clyde's May, and I don't think I haven't had the Peg Leg Porker before.
You haven't had any before?
Well, I've had their 12-year-old. I've had their more premium one.
Okay.
But I have not had that one. And I honestly, I don't know. I cannot remember the last time I've had most of these. Like, I've tried these before, but years and years ago at the outset of my bourbon journey.
It's funny because
I have not tried Evan Williams or Old Forester or Jim Beam White Label in like 10 years.
It's funny because we've talked about this before, but I skipped over all of these. Like, a lot of people start with Jim Beam and they start with Old Forester because it's cheap and it's somewhat readily available. And if you're in college, it mixes with whatever weird jungle crap you want to make. And it's just sort of where people's journey starts, right? I skipped over all of it. So I don't honestly think I've ever had Old Forester 86. I don't think I've ever had Evan Williams Black Label. So a lot of these are going to be relatively new to me as well.
Yeah, I think I only tried a few of these because I was working at Dorn's and we had them open already, like in the back, because they were like something cheap that you could sample for people.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I never purchased most of these because like you're saying, I skipped right over it and went to not like ultra premium stuff, but to mid. Like I want to say the first bourbon I bought was Four Roses single barrel, so like $40 a bottle.
Yeah,
right. And
that's pretty good.
And that's where I started, and then from there I wasn't going to go back to Evan Williams or something probably, because again I wasn't drinking. I wasn't looking for something for consumption.
Yeah,
I was more interested in chasing flavor.
So. And we should say too that there's no real method to this selection. We sort of randomly. I wanted a couple 80 proofs, some mid range, and some 90 proofs. So I wanted to kind of span the proof range.
Right.
I wanted to separate out some like products. So we also have Gentleman Jack that's going to show up in the next round, but I didn't want to put it head to head with regular JD. So we kind of switched things around a little bit and mix and matched. And the price range here is pretty wide too. You're talking, $15, $20 a bottle up to
like
40, 50
yeah.
plus. But all in that 90 proof and under range, and most of them being pretty readily available.
Yeah. So I gotta say, right off the bat, I just smelled the Jim Beam White Label. It smells really good.
We're probably gonna find.
I mean, we're about
it
to.
Does. It actually does smell
it's
good.
A really pleasant aroma. Like, here's usually my expectation with like cheap spirits is that they're gonna smell like alcohol. Like they're going to smell like grain, just cheap ethanol aroma and not much else. But I gotta say, like, that's actually a very pleasant, slightly floral.
I mean, given that it's a straight bourbon, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's at least 4 years, so it shouldn't be too grainy. There's a decent amount of rye in there. It's a 13% rye in the mash bill, so it should have a little bit of a rye kick to it, which makes me think it's going to be it's going to have some balance. So yeah. And again, $20. So what do you think?
Palate underwhelming. Although inoffensive.
Very much so.
Completely inoffensive.
It's corn and vanilla.
Yeah.
And there's some a little bit of caramely note in there or some like burnt dark chocolate, and that's about it.
I'm missing that kind of appley note I get on the aroma though. I don't get that on the palate at all.
I think it's more of the vanilla. Like it's a lot of vanilla for me.
Yeah. All right. I'm giving that a solid. I need I should have like a little score sheet here, but I'm. Yeah,
I remember I have a score sheet.
You have a score sheet?
Yeah.
All right.
I'm
giving that one a gold star.
A gold star?
Yep.
I thought it was lacking.
Well, you haven't seen the conversion ratio yet.
How many gold stars are we going up to here?
I don't know.
Okay.
So just mark me down for a gold star for Jim Beam.
So you get one. I don't know what the hell I'm doing.
You'll figure it out.
Okay. Next up.
Ooh. Okay.
Jack Daniels.
All right. JD Old Number 7. This is the one I'm the most familiar with of this.
Yeah. You probably
of this lineup because like this is the one that you go to a bar and they have no selection of anything, but you want bourbon or in this Tennessee whiskey. Sorry for you JD fans.
Yeah.
But you want whiskey and they have no selection. You're like, I'll get a Jack and Coke, or I'll just get a shot of Jack.
Now JD is kind of interesting too because
smells sweeter.
It should be. It's 80% corn. You have the maple charcoal filtering.
Mm-hmm.
And here, malted barley is actually your second highest in the mash bill. 12% malted barley, so only 8% rye. So everything about Jack Daniels is meant to be quote unquote smooth, right? It's sweet, it's light, there's not much rye, it's low proof. Everything is supposed to be like super approachable.
Definitely has a more bold and robust flavor.
You can taste a lot more oak on this than you can the Jim Beam. The Jim Beam doesn't taste young, but it doesn't taste old at all.
No.
JD has a little bit more depth to it. There's a color difference too if you look at them side by side. It's just a better pour.
2 smiley faces.
Oh God.
No, I'm gonna this one slightly edges out the Jim Beam for me.
I would agree. I think it's a little bit better.
I don't think it's like a substantially better thing, and I will say it's a little hotter actually. I feel like despite their claim of doing all this in the pursuit of smoothness, James, I think it's actually a bit hotter.
Honestly, I think the other one
in the old esophagus.
I think Jim Beam's rougher for me, and so therefore it tastes a little bit hotter. But yeah, I mean, they're both in the same like lane in terms of flavor expectations. They're both mixers.
Yeah.
All right, next up.
Although I don't know, I feel like I could. You know what the JD or not JD, the Jim Beam is reminding me of? It's reminding me of Suntory Toki.
Oh,
if you've ever had that, that's like very similar, where it's like a 1-note whiskey, but it's very light and inoffensive. I feel like that's a good sipper while you're cooking. Now the Jim Beam white.
The Jim Beam. I have a hard time. So if somebody asked you to describe the flavors of JD, what would you say? I have a really hard time with Jack Daniels.
It's kind of strange because it's just kind of syrupy, like sweet, but then it's also oaky. Like, I don't know.
It's some sort of like vague dark sugar.
Right.
And some vague dark fruit maybe. Yeah. And then oak. That's about it.
Yeah.
But there's some vanilla in there, but it's fine.
It's fine. Now, Clyde's May, I'm super interested in because I've never had this before.
So this one is a little bit different. I see this all the time, and I bought some of their higher end stuff, and I actually liked it. They have some higher proof offerings. They have some finished stuff. But this is 85 proof. You're looking at $30 to $35 a bottle. Again, 55% corn. So we're dropping way down in corn percentage here. Mm-hmm. 30% rye, and then 15% malted barley. It's about a 5-year product.
I can definitely smell the jump in rye. It's noticeably spicy.
Oh, yeah.
But it's also, it kind of smells like a craft whiskey to me.
Well, it's a smaller producer for sure. So
is it?
Yeah, it may fall into that category still. It's hard to say like how you define craft anymore, but it's certainly a much smaller producer.
It has that little bit of like funky quality to me that makes me not think of like a mainstream super mass produced.
Yeah, you get more of the grain. I think it's probably a little bit more grain forward than the other two, especially with this much rye in it. It's going to be a little bit rougher on the nose.
Definitely get some of that red hot spice going on, which is nice.
Oh, that's different.
Different good or different bad?
I like it, actually. It's spicy. It's got a little bit of a kick to it. You get some of the cinnamon. There's a lot of like green apple note
to
it that I think is really interesting, and like a honey. like a honey note.
Yeah, I was gonna say kind of honey walnut.
Yeah,
I get some nuttiness.
It's nutty. It's nutty. There you go, Andrew. It's nutty.
Lorraine says, "Be kind to Jack Daniels."
I mean, I like Jack Daniels.
Yeah,
Well,
and a lot of their other products, obviously, like this is their base product. But a lot of their other stuff's very good.
Yeah, we just didn't want to go too high up in the Jack Daniels line because one, they get too high proof, and then two, it gets harder to find them. So,
well, right now, we're getting better each time.
We're going up.
Yeah, the Clyde's May, that's triple gold star.
It's really, really interesting. Like it's the first one that we've hit so far that I would probably sip on.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think I would sit there and contemplate like the existence of the universe with it or anything, but it's nice.
But it has multiple layers going on. It's got a little bit more going on.
And it would be killer in a cocktail because of the rye spice is going to cut through some of the things. Even though it's only 5 proof points higher, it drinks like it's thicker because of the extra rye and because of the extra spice and a little bit extra alcohol. So overall, it's pretty solid.
You know what I think I'm learning about myself in this lineup? I just like bourbon.
It's sweet and it's easy.
Every single one of these, I'm like, ooh, I kind of like this. It's nice.
So here we're on to Old Forester 86.
I really like the aroma on Old Forester.
So I was really interested to do this because you and I have tried a lot of Old Forester stuff.
Yeah.
I like Old Forester quite a bit. But I've never tried their base stuff.
Right.
Because a lot of times when people ask me like, hey, what's the best like mixer bourbon I can get that's pretty cheap? A lot of times I'll tell them Old Forester 100. But I never try the 86. So this is $25. Mash bill, 72% corn, 18% rye. So it's a little bit high on the rye side, 10% malted barley. You're looking at about a 4-year product.
Yeah, that's good. I will say, comes in, you get more caramel on this one.
Yeah, a lot more.
A lot more caramel.
Like caramel toffee.
Like this is the first one I would say is like classic bourbon profile. Like JD is close. But again, with all the maple going on, it kind of skews it. The Jim Beam's too light for me to say like classic bourbon profile. The Clyde's May, that higher rye and kind of going to the honey-ish kind of character, is a little more of a unique flavor profile. The Old Forester is the first one where I'm like, yeah, that's classic, what I think of as a bourbon.
And I'd have to look up why Clyde Mays is not a bourbon, because it's a Alabama style whiskey. So it must be something about the barrel that they're using, because it certainly qualifies with mash bill. I didn't look that up, but it's definitely a different product out of those two. So thus far, Clyde Mays was your favorite. Do you prefer the Old Forester or the Clyde Mays?
I still like the Clyde May.
You still like better? Clyde Mays? Okay.
I think so.
I'm sort of torn. I think it depends on what I'm looking to drink.
Yeah, the Old Forester, to me, the finish is weird. The finish goes bitter. It's like, I don't know. There's something off on the finish.
Probably because it's so old at 4 years. It's just way too tannic on the back for you.
Oh, yeah, it's possible.
So now we're on to Evan Williams Black Label. Here, 86 proof again.
Yeah, no, the Clyde's May.
This is so the Evan Williams is one of the cheapest ones that I think you can get. It's about $15 to $20 a bottle. So you're looking super, super cheap here. 78% corn, 12% malted barley, 10% rye. It's at least 4 years because it is a straight. So could be interesting. Are you losing count already?
I'm counting my well.
So this is one.
I don't think I've had this one.
This is an interesting comparison with the Old Forester because you're looking at almost the exact same age. It's a very similar mash bill, same proof.
Same smells price spicier range. Though, to me. I think it smells spicier.
And it has less corn, less rye. You're looking at 10% rye versus 18% rye.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's just a little more ethanol-y.
It's not as sweet. It's not as sweet. If you smell them side by side, the Old Forester is sweeter. This has more like earthy tones to it. Yeah. Wow, that's exceptionally boring. isn't it? Like there's nothing even remotely interesting about that pour. Holy shit! Like that, there is nothing there.
That
Wow.
is stupendously, incredibly,
Just
remarkably
boring.
unremarkable.
It is.
That is
It's
really
super bad. Like there's nothing I would do with that.
no. It's not bad, James. Bad is reserved for Defiant Single Malt. That, but
I don't know. That's not very good, man.
that is,
Like it's not very good. No.
yeah, no, it's not. I mean,
I would rather
All-
drink the Jim Beam White Label, and I'm not a fan of the Jim Beam White Label.
all I smell on the aroma is some ethanol with mixed with like a little bit of warehouse kind of like
it feels like if you and I sat down with a bunch of like random bourbon flavors,
right.
like
that-
we could put it together.
That's exactly what it smells like. It smells like one of those like aroma kits that you
that
get,
you like scratch and sniff
with
aroma.
the scratch and sniff and the bourbon scratch and sniff,
Like,
where it's like
how many drops of caramel do you want, Paul?
it smells like a synthetic bourbon.
Yeah.
Like,
It's not good.
no, yeah. The
I So be nice to JD. JD is better than this. Yeah, if I'm like, there's no question. And Evan Williams single barrel, like back in the day, Evan Williams single barrel used to be like, in my opinion, one of the best values out there.
yeah.
It was pretty solid. It was sweet. It was really sweet, and it had this orangey note to it that I just absolutely loved. Every year for Thanksgiving, I love to make my own cranberry sauce,
Mhm.
and I would put a little bit of Evan Williams single barrel in there because the oranginess with the cranberry.
Oh.
This I would not use in my cranberry sauce. I don't know what I would do with this, but I would not use it for that. I
Here's
think
the
this
thing.
would be good in like if you're making some sort of chocolate candy that's boozy, it would be good. I wouldn't even use it in a cocktail if it was me.
Really?
No.
Hmm.
You're not going to get anything.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I don't find it offensive.
I find it offensive. The fact that it's bourbon makes it offensive to me. Yeah, not
Well,
a fan.
Okay. So
So that's not going to win.
no, I will say that is in last place
Yes.
for me.
It's in last place. All right.
So currently I would go Clyde's May
And it's Clyde Mays.
or Clyde, not
You
Clyde's May.
got to put the
Clyde
S in the right
Mays.
spot.
Okay,
here, Paul.
Clyde Mays.
If it's going to be your top, you need to at least name it. Right?
Know what it's called?
Yeah.
So Clyde Mays, Old Forester, and Evan William. I don't know. I kind of like them for different reasons.
We have enough we can go back.
Yeah, this
So
is true.
you just need to narrow down.
So Evan Williams is definitely out though.
Yeah, that's not going to win.
That's an easy one to remove.
All right. So next up is Four Roses small batch. They've sort of discontinued, if I remember correctly, the yellow label.
Now, if I was a betting man,
This is the one.
this would be towards the top.
Yeah. I mean, Four Roses has been doing this blending shit for a really long time, and they do it really well. They have the 10 different recipes. This is a blend of 4 of those recipes. It's a little bit older than some of the ones we've tried. It's 6 to 7 years. So you're getting more age here. And what I really like about it is it's a blend of 2 really high rye profiles. So the information I found, it's a blend of 2 bourbons, one that's 20% rye and one that's 35% rye. So it should be a little bit more balanced than some of the other ones we're seeing in terms of that sweet to spice profile.
Yeah. Now, my memory of the standard Four Roses, though, is that like many blends, they run the risk of being incredibly too like flat in terms of they're too evenly rounded in terms of flavor profile. I kind of feel like that's still the case
So,
when I taste this.
okay. I think it's sweet and spicy, which I like. You can definitely taste the more oak on this.
Mhm.
It's almost kind of, this is the first one we've had that has sort of like a tannic-y kind of dry finish to it.
Right.
I expect to find that too, obviously, in the Eagle Rare being as old as it is. But this is, I think it's the most nuanced we've had up to this point.
You think so? Even compared to Clyde Mays.
I'm going to have to try them side by side. That's got a lot going on because it's just so much rye, right? So I'm going to have to try them side by side to kind of cut through it. But the blend of the OB recipe and the OE recipe here, the consistency with, I guess that sort of, even though they're different, one's high rye, technically one's low rye, they both kind of fall into a higher rye profile.
Right.
And I think that works really well, blending out kind of the sweeter notes. Because to me, Four Roses is always naturally kind of fruity and sweet anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that extra spice kind of cuts it a little bit.
Yeah. My memory of Four Roses that I always thought they did really good aromas. And although it is nice, I find it like not as superior as the price point would suggest to me. I would expect.
Now this is the same price point though as Clyde Mays, right in that 30 to 35
But I'm saying
range.
just compared to like the Old Forester, the Evan Williams, or the Jim Beam, which are all like $20 bottles.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
For a full size, I would think that the Four Roses at 30, I would just expect it to be noticeably better.
And this is honestly,
I think it is better, but it's not as much of a jump as I thought.
This is one of the reasons why when people were talking about Four Roses, 10 years ago, I always told people go buy the single barrel.
Right.
Because you're talking a $10 price jump at the time. It was like $40. And they were killer. Like they were killer. And it was one recipe you could pick if you liked OB or you liked OE. I always liked OBSO. That was always my favorite, so that's the one I went after. So you could kind of pick and choose which one you wanted. But I always thought the jump between the small batch and the single barrel was big.
Yeah.
I don't know. The small batch select for me sort of falls in between. I don't like it as much as the single barrel.
I think we tried that in one of the earlier seasons. It's kind of a mess.
Yeah, I like it a little bit better than this, but certainly not enough to warrant the price jump in mine. But right now, this is in contention for me with the Clyde Mays and the Old Forester as my favorites.
Yeah, I think this is just, it's kind of sharp on the palate is the only way I could describe it. Like it's bright.
Well, this is really high proof for you. This is 90. So this is jumping up there.
I mean, it's just, it's bright. And I don't know. It's not tickling my fancy.
Yeah, wow, look
right
at you.
now.
Look at you.
But I would put it, I think I'd put it in third. Right
so
now.
behind the
so
Clyde Mays
behind the
and
Clyde Mays and the Old Forester.
Okay. So we both have the same three as our tops.
Yeah, but I think Clyde Mays might number one.
Yeah.
But and yours is four.
I'm not sure.
You're
I'm
not
gonna have
yet.
to try.
Okay.
All right, let's try this next crappy one here. Eagle Rare. This is
the perfect bourbon.
It's the perfect bourbon. So this is by far the oldest one that we're trying. This is a 10-year.
Oh, I can just smell the Buffalo Trace.
Oh yeah.
It
used to. So, and for those of you who
this
don't
one
know,
wins.
This used to be the single barrel. It's not anymore technically, although essentially like
it doesn't say it on there anymore.
No. Because the way they changed their bottling, and so some of the second barrel kind of blends over. They just legally couldn't do it anymore, from what I hear. But it's still pretty close. It kept the 10-year age statement. They took it off the front, moved it to the back. But yeah, Eagle Rare, Buffalo Trace. Anything Buffalo Trace makes disappears relatively quickly these days. So this is one of the more sought after bottles.
Yep.
Certainly that we're going to be trying in this lineup.
Aroma, excellent, in my opinion. I think this, other than the Clyde Mays, I think this blows the rest out of the water in terms of the aroma. It's so integrated and there's no harshness.
It's a lot of dark fruit.
Yep.
This is by far the fruitiest of the ones we've tried. Clearly
Plus,
more
I
barrel
can
note.
smell the mahogany.
Yeah, it's clearly heavier. It's denser. I mean, you can smell this and understand why at $40 this was a steal back in the day. The jump between this and the $30 to $35 Four Roses small batch is pretty considerable.
Yeah. I mean, just on the palate too. Like, now, again, we're talking about 90 proof bourbons. So you're still a limit to how rich it can taste. But by comparison, when you do the Four Roses right to the Eagle Rare, I don't know if you could pick two more dissimilar bourbons
It would be tough.
to have side by side because the Four Roses is so light. It's floral. It's, it's bright, and the Eagle Rare is heavy and dark in character, despite them being the same proof.
Yeah, and we're kind of cheating
Plus,
a little
the
bit
Eagle
here.
Rare
I mean,
is
it's
super smooth.
It's twice as old as some of the other ones that we're trying in this range. So
well, but that wasn't part of the parameters of the
No,
experiment,
no,
James. The
no.
parameters was 90 proof.
proof and availability.
Right.
And I guess in some places this is still readily
it's
available.
not super readily available, but as far as allocated bourbons go, it's one of the most available.
Yeah, I say this and Buffalo Trace, which the regular Buffalo Trace is going to be in the next
Right.
round, I think. So we may end up with a all Buffalo Trace final, which will mean I'll have to stop talking shit about Buffalo Trace on the podcast because if they're in the final, it is what it is. But yeah,
Right.
I mean,
So I think that's
good.
tied for me right now, number one.
All right, next one up. This is one that you did not
dark
look up
horse.
any information on.
Peg leg porker. No,
Peg leg
I'm pretty
porker.
sure you're right. I'm pretty sure it's Dickel. I remember that.
I think it's Dickel, and
We could-
I think I
double
bought the
check.
12 year for you.
You
while
brought
I
it
was
back
traveling.
for me. Yeah.
Look at how nice of a person I am. I remember writing you when I was in. I bought it in Bardstown. It was during my Bourbon Trail tour.
Which I wasn't invited on.
No. I mean, I don't like you that much.
Yes, it is sourced from Dickel.
Okay. Look at
Yep.
And you can, man. And this is 90
But
proof.
it's a I do remember it is a barbecue restaurant up there that they source Dickel and then bottle their own thing.
Which is kind of cool.
So they kind of designed it to pair with barbecue.
The nose is excellent.
The 12, by the way, the 12 is like, to me, one of the best whiskeys I own.
Yeah, it's
Like,
really, really
It's
good.
really good.
We'll have to try it. We'll have to
And-
drink some of that after this. We haven't had enough
But
whiskey.
it got eliminated because it's 93 proof or
Yeah,
94 proof.
It's 93.
But just, and certainly it's my friend Sorrel's. It's his favorite whiskey
Oh,
in my
really?
collection that I've poured for him, just about. Other than Blanton's Straight from the Barrel. And,
Which is hard to beat.
And like a couple other things. But price and availability, notwithstanding, like the 12, I think is $100 bottle, and maybe somewhat limited, but not like, it's not an allocated super rare thing, as far as I know. You were able to just pick me up one.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I don't see them everywhere.
I don't see them
and
here.
I was in
but yeah.
Kentucky.
Right.
But yeah, there was multiple
Ooh.
bottles there. I saw it in.
Oh, I like the aroma on this.
It
It might just be because coming from the Eagle Rare, it's very refreshing.
It's very fruity. It's got some of that like vitamin E note, like you get like the Flintstone vitamin notes you get from Dickel,
Yep.
but there's a smokiness
Yep.
and an extra layer of wood to it that makes it really unique.
That's excellent.
Hmm.
In my opinion. Yeah,
I-
ooh.
I think I only officially eliminated 3.
Well, okay, so I definitely eliminated Evan Williams. JD is out
Yeah.
at this point. If I go back to JD, man, JD just smells like candy when you go back and smell it. Like, it's incredible. It just smells like
Dude,
candy.
it smells like a Jolly Rancher now.
Yeah, it's so sweet.
Yeah, I'll eliminate that too. And bananas. It's very banana-y right now.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
again,
like banana Laffy Taffy.
right. And
Which,
JD,
by the way, at
dude, I feel JD burning in my throat, which like
it should not do.
It should not do, and I don't really get that with these other ones. Again, not like not trying to say like, oh, the smooth with, but it just is. There's something about JD, it just burns going down.
the lingering like artificial banana flavor is what's killing it.
It is strange. Yeah. So
I'm gonna eliminate.
I still really like the Jim Beam White Label aroma.
It's because you're weird.
No.
It smells like
Oh,
wet
it's
dog
getting
right
weird now.
It smells like wet dog.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, but it also smell. What's that? Yeah, it's weird now. After letting it sit
It's
and
very
tasting,
corny now.
It did get grainy. When we first poured it, though, it was this nice, like, vanilla custard kind of.
I mean, comparatively, right? We don't,
Right.
we hadn't had anything at that point.
It's true.
And
I think that's what they're counting on, is that you haven't had anything else.
drink this first. I do think it's better than JD. At least side by side, I think I'd probably rather drink the Jim Beam.
Yeah.
Oh.
I do too. It's certainly the the finish is much shorter.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't give you like that lingering kind of strangeness. But yeah.
But I think it's got a little bit more going on. And if I was going to put it in a cocktail, I think it'd be solid. Like, yeah.
So, hey, Bad Axe Bourbon, thanks for tuning in. Yeah, so the Clyde May, I want to know, do they have older stuff? Or is this their only product?
No. They make an 8-year or a 10-year or something like that. They make some like cast strength stuff. They have interesting products. I bought a couple bottles because you can find it at Total Wine. Any Total Wine you walk into is going to have a ton of Clyde May stuff, and it's always kind of interesting.
Yeah, I think
there's something they do with apple chips or applewood chips or something. I can't remember. There's something that makes it the Alabama style. I'll look that up. While we kind of talk.
So for me, I think this is where it becomes difficult as someone who's like a whiskey nerd or, a whiskey reviewer to give a fair shake between stuff, because I'm so drawn to the kind of oddball, unique thing, which is, in my opinion, the Clyde Mays.
It is totally different than anything else that we have in this lineup. There's no question.
And so by default, and especially the even notwithstanding, being a whiskey reviewer or whatever, when you do a lineup and you have something that just stands out in terms of flavor profile from everything else, it's difficult not to be drawn to it.
Yeah.
Unless it stands out in a bad way. But when it's pleasant, like the honey kind of character to this is so nice that it's hard not to just be drawn to it as your favorite. And to compare, it's almost like comparing apples and oranges, right?
So it is finished with green apples.
Oh, okay.
So there is, and it makes sense because like when we tried it, I was like, holy shit, that's really appley. And so that's what's taking away from the bourbon, is that infusion of the green apple note. But it smells really good.
So it's actually good, made with physical, like apples?
That's what it said. I'd have to spend more time kind of digging into that more.
Because that's super delicious. Whatever they're doing. And then I would say the Four Roses is, I feel like the Four Roses just kind of gets lost in the noise. Like the Four Roses is just a little too generic and delicate.
Yeah.
Which on its own, it's fine. But when you put it in a lineup against a bunch of other things, I think it just kind of gets lost.
So let's see. I'm looking up more information on.
Go back to Old Forester. Yeah. I think the Old Forester is, the Old Forester's problem is that the Eagle Rare does what the Old Forester's doing, but better.
So it says here they use green apple juice.
So actually, how can they call it I
have no idea.
Whiskey if it has apple juice in it?
So maybe they just age it on the green apples, and people are saying that. I don't know. I don't think you could call it a whiskey. Otherwise, if you're adding juice to it, it would technically be like a liqueur or something, right? But it actually tastes kind of liqueur-ish.
Yeah.
In the appley kind of honey note.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, it's good. And it fits the criteria, so whatever.
Yeah, the Old Forester is close. I think the Old Forester, that is a solid sipping bourbon, though. The Old Forester 86.
Yeah, it's good.
But like there's nothing, there's no off notes. There's no weird finish. The aroma is fine. It's got a little more of that barrel character, especially like if you're someone that's, um more sensitive to barrel note or to heavy cask influence, like where the Eagle Rare might be over to you. I feel like the Old Forester would probably strike a good balance of getting a little more of that caramely barrel char note coming in, but without overdoing it.
Yeah, it's very much a bourbon. It has a lot of this kind of traditional bourbon profile to it, but it does have some weight to it. And I think that makes it stand out from like the Jim Beam in particular.
Right.
It's more center lane clearly than the Clyde Mays with the added whatever they do with apples. It's head and shoulders above the Evan Williams, in my opinion, in terms of complexity. And I honestly think side by side, I almost prefer that to the Four Roses small batch. But
the Evan Williams? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I do too.
Or no, I mean the Old Forester.
Or no, yes, yeah, not Evan
not the Evan Williams.
Dude, I can't even smell the Evan Williams.
No, I just tried it again. I was like, yeah, it's still just as bad.
Nothing.
Even after I've had eight whiskeys, it's still just as bad.
Which is saying something.
So to me, I think this comes down to I just don't want to like Eagle Rare.
I know, but I think here's the thing. I think it's between Eagle Rare and Peg Leg Porker.
Yeah, me too. And I really hate saying that, but I do think it's between the two.
And I mean, how many? We have to have two move on, right? Because we
want to do
like a final four kind
Oh.
of situation, right? Because we have 16. We tasted 8 today.
Yeah. The problem is the Peg Leg Porker is going to be like, I don't care if you try this blind or not.
Do you think you'll be able to tell it?
Hell yeah. It smells like barbecue. Like
Yeah.
the hickory smoke is really, really clear. That dark fruity note is really, really clear. But I do think those are the two best bottles on the table.
Mm-hmm. I would give the Clyde Mays a honorable mention for just making a good spirit. I don't even know if it's really whiskey. They call it whiskey,
but it's pretty good.
But if they're adding apple juice, like I don't know.
Or if they're just throwing fruit at the bottom and aging
Right.
it on it, that's kind of cool. Like I like that.
But
it's kind of a brandy style where you put peaches in there and let it sit on the peaches.
But I mean, it certainly all the way up until we got to the Eagle Rare and the Peg Leg Porker. Although the Old Forester, again,
it gives it
honorable
it's
mention.
Yeah,
honorable mention to the Old Forester. If Eagle Rare wasn't in this lineup, I think Old Forester would probably be the number 2.
I would agree. Yeah. So I would say out of the two, if you had to choose, just rank them right now between Eagle Rare and Peg Leg Porker, what are you drinking? Like you have one pour. I can give you a single pour of one of those. Which one are you taking?
Dude, it smells so much like barbecue.
It does. Yeah. It smell like I can tell that it was made to go. Like if it was truly made to go with barbecue, it makes sense. The hickory adds a smokiness to it. It's sweet. It's fruity. It's well rounded. It's pretty solid.
Yeah, I think I'm going Peg Leg Porker
I would too.
between the two.
So I would take that one. I would take
But-
Eagle Rare 2. And then for me, I guess Old Forester is probably third, but it's sort of tied with the Clyde Mays, depending on what you're kind of looking for.
But I think if I was speaking for the everyman,
You'd say Eagle Rare.
Eagle Rare.
Yeah.
Just because the Peg Leg Porker, again, that barbecue note is pretty profound. And the longer it sits in the glass, the smokier it gets. Like this was a brand new bottle that hadn't been opened. And so it's just getting more smoky and barbecue-y in my glass. And so I think if you're looking, traditional bourbon style, the Eagle Rare as the perfect bourbon, obviously takes
Of course.
But the Peg Leg Porker is really excellent, and as kind of a dark horse, or a dark pig
No.
in the race.
I see what you're doing.
Um,
So I would say out of this lineup, if you have a chance at the Peg Leg Porker and you're looking for something that's kind of easy drinking,
Right.
I think that's the best of the lineup. Eagle Rare is right there with it. And I think most people, if they see Eagle Rare, are going to buy it anyway. So it's not like we're giving you any new information or new tips.
Right.
After that, if you don't have availability for those two,
get Old Forester.
Yeah. I mean, shit.
That is the surprise. Well, maybe not a surprise because, like, I would assume that Old Forester makes good stuff. I've had a lot of their other stuff. But the 86 is something that is not on my radar and is honestly solid.
And this is why I tell people the Old Forester 100 is, I think, a really damn good buy. Like, you're not talking much more money than this, maybe $5 more. You're in that range. You know what it reminds me of is Rittenhouse Rye.
Yeah.
Like, if you go to a bar and you just get a straight pour Rittenhouse Rye, it's 100 proof. It's damn good. Like, it's not going to stack up to the top shelf ryes, obviously, but it's complex enough that you can drink it by itself. It fits really well in a cocktail because of the 100 proof. Old Forester 100, I think, is the bourbon counterpoint of Rittenhouse Rye. The 86 proof isn't quite as good, but in this lineup, being 90 proof and below, it stands out among like some pretty decent bottles and some pretty popular bottles. So if you can't get the Eagle Rare, you can't get the Peg Leg Porker, I would go with the Old Forester. I think it's a great bottle to take to a party. Like if you want to take to a party and people are going to
that's the thing too, is you can afford to drink that every day.
Yeah. If people are going to be mixing it with shit or they're going to be drinking it neat on ice, it's a good pour. If you want something kind of unique and maybe the folks that you're buying it for like a little bit sweeter, or you want something that's a little bit different, the Clyde Mays is really interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know that it's great. I don't think it is. I think it's probably okay if we put it in a lineup of a lot of different things, but it's interesting. It's different, and it's something you can sit around and talk about. And I will say some of their higher end stuff, their older stuff, their higher proof stuff is legitimately good.
Yeah.
But you can see they're on to something a little bit different. They're making a different product. And I would say the Evan Williams is hot trash. So I would not buy the Evan Williams unless you're just like, no, I just wouldn't buy it. I don't know. I was trying to think of a scenario under which I would buy the Evan Williams. And I don't have one.
It's funny because when you do a tasting like this and you go back from one whiskey to the other, whatever that disparate flavor profile is gets highlighted.
Oh, it stands out even
magnified,
more.
Right?
Yeah.
And so it's like, as you go back to the JB white label, it's like very grainy, very corn heavy. And then, the Jack Daniels is like very mapley and banana-y. And so it's like, so on. Go to the Evan Williams, there's just nothing. There's like,
it just tastes more like water.
It just tastes more like, there's no aroma and no flavor profile to it at all.
The nose is like, there's literally zero nose.
Like, I know. I was sitting here. I'm like,
do you know what the nose reminds me of?
Is there anything in my glass? Like, I don't know.
The nose reminds me of if you drank all the whiskey in a glass and let it sit there for like 2 hours. It has that sort of like muted, slightly
weird
whiskey note, but there's not much to it.
Yeah, it's essence of. Okay, you know what? If you're a big fan of LaCroix, Evan Williams is the bourbon for you.
The bourbon for you. And I will say that is by far the biggest disappointment of the lineup because
I've heard good things about the brand.
Well, and I like Evan Williams single barrel.
Right.
I do.
I haven't had that.
And they have some older stuff that's obviously really good. It's Heaven Hill distillate.
See, and that's the thing, right? Because Heaven Hill is one of the distilleries that has a good amount of weight behind the name.
Yeah.
And so I feel like this is one of those products where it baffles me that distilleries output something like this, because granted, I'm sure it makes them a lot of money. Like, it probably sells a lot and it's very profitable for them. But if I'm a brand, if I'm Heaven Hill Distillery, I wouldn't want anyone knowing that I made this.
It's maybe a little bit harsh.
Well, is it though? I mean,
I don't know.
I mean, look at like what Buffalo Trace has done for the most part. Is like every one of their whiskeys is like a knockout in terms of public opinion. Close. Then they have like, you go through their list, right? And it's like Stag, William LaRue Weller, and Eagle Rare, and you go down and down, and then all of a sudden it's like benchmark.
Yeah.
It's like,
well, this is why
one of these things is not like the others,
No.
And so like, I feel like if I'm Buffalo Trace, cut out the fat, just eliminate that, like that stain on your honor,
Well, and this is part of the reason why people like Four Roses puts Four Roses on everything. Right. Heaven Hill does not.
Right.
They have Evan Williams, they have Elijah Craig, they have different brands under the same distillery name.
Yes.
And so that allows you to sort of separate your lines, and it creates sort of a distance between that brand and the distillery in case it's not that great.
Right.
Old Forester doesn't do that. They don't hide behind it. So Buffalo Trace does to a certain extent. And it's kind of an interesting branding scenario.
So this is something I've never even really, we need to actually do some research and do an episode about this. No one does that in Scotch.
Like, that's a good point. Like, yeah, nobody does. It's
none
all
of
like
the distilleries.
I'm looking at your collection right here. Everything right up front is the name of the distillery.
Right. And that is a very, that's like a very, I don't know, I feel like American idea of like, we're going to make like a really bad product, but to protect our brand name, we'll make a separate brand for the bad products that doesn't.
Actually, though, Port Charlotte, right?
That's the only one I can think of. Bruichladdich is the only distillery, but that is not to specify quality. That's to specify peated versus unpeated.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And so, but in American whiskey, that is an incredibly common occurrence that all the distilleries have multiple brands under them, and those brands protect their own quality, basically levels.
And I will say too, it's only the bigger distilleries. Like you're looking at Barton,
right?
Heaven Hill, Buffalo Trace, those folks. Like the really big ones tend to do that. Maker's Mark doesn't, even though they're relatively big. And then it gets a little bit complicated when you start talking about small batch lines, like Jim Beam small batch lines, that kind of stuff. But in terms of base products, yeah, it's a little bit different. But
I never really thought about that. That is like a very clear-cut difference between like international whiskey brands and here. So.
Yeah, because I definitely don't see that with Japanese whiskey. You don't see it with Irish whiskey.
Oh, Japanese might be the closest.
Oh, do you see quite a bit of it?
We'll revisit that. Yeah. Do an episode. So anyway, guys, thanks for tuning in. This was really fun.
I had a lot of whiskey, Paul.
Yeah, I did too. Do you need an Uber, James?
Well, I want to try the Peg Leg Porker 12. And so it's going to be a while to the Uber. But yeah.
So anyway, I'm glad you made it today because I was pressure washing your house this morning, and I figured I probably
like
woke you up
8:30 in the morning. Yeah.
Hey, dude, it's like 99 degrees today, so
oh my God,
I had to.
So this is the last thing I'll wrap up with before we end today. I needed whiskey last night. Like I don't drink. Everybody comes up to us, and I'm sure they do this to you too, and they think that you like drink whiskey for breakfast and lunch and dinner, right? They're like, "Oh, what whiskey did you have today?" I'm like, "None. It's freaking noon on a Tuesday. Like I didn't drink any yet." But last night I needed a whiskey, man. It was Chad's. Like this is Chad's first Father's Day that's coming up.
Ah, okay.
So his wife decided he was going to pay to reserve a paintball field.
On the hottest weekend of the year.
Paintball in Florida should be outlawed in general. Like it's just ridiculously stupid. And it was 97 degrees. We were playing from 1 to 4 p.m.
Oh my
which
God.
You literally could not make it any hotter. And we were on
I would have told him good luck.
It was. I drank 2 bottles of water and 2 Gatorades, and I was still like dehydrated.
So you went for some whiskey.
So no, here's the story. Here's why I needed whiskey. We were playing the 3rd game, and it was King of the Hill. And so you start on opposite ends. There's this fort in the middle that's a hill, and I'm talking hill by Florida standards, meaning it's like 2 feet elevation, right? And there's a fort on top. I was stupid. And I took the fort. And so because I'm quick, right? I'm an ex-sprinter. So I was like, I'm just going to run straight up. I ran straight up. I got in the fort. I hid in the corner. And as soon as I got in the fort, I was like, anybody on my right hand side can just shoot the hell out of me. And my friend Chad came up and he was like right in front of me. So I plucked him off and I was really excited. And then from the right hand side, I saw a guy just standing there with a gun and I was like, oh crap. And he shot me right in the junk. like from like 10 meters away. I've done paintball at least 5 or 6 times in my life. And I took it right in the junk.
Yeah.
Like I just laid there. I rolled off and I went home, took a shower, and I drank whiskey. I was like, man. So that is the one time where if somebody had come up to me at like 5 p.m. and were like, what did you drink? I was like, a lot. I drank a lot.
The King of the Hill is really fun at that place because you can like surround it and come in from it. But it's, yeah.
I'm not a big paintball fan. I'm really not.
No.
Like, I'm not very good at it.
No, me neither.
I'm okay. It tells me that I would have been really bad in the military.
Yeah.
And I probably would have got shot in the junk.
Yeah. The problem with paintball is there's a lot of just, you really have no idea what the other people are going to do. And so if you like hide behind your bunker and you think that like your teammates are going to protect you,
they're not.
Like, they're not.
No.
And so like they'll just let the other people run up right behind you and like you're looking out to the right and someone just shoots you in the back.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like all the time. So versus on the flip side is you watch like people that are actually good at paintball and they're just sitting there blowing through 500 rounds.
Oh, just
constantly,
like instantaneously
laying down suppressive fire, which is the right way to do it. But, you know, when you're a recreational person, you're out there and you see like the prices of like,
yeah, I'm not going to drop $200 on a
you're
day
like, it's
paintball.
like $50 just for like 100.
So I get shot in the face.
Right. Paintball's so expensive.
After 10 or 15 minutes, but it was fun. But the take home message was I drank whiskey last night because I was in severe pain. And it did help. Although even then, in that much pain, I would not have drank Evan Williams.
Oh, hey, Koo joined us.
Oh, what do we got? We got some comments.
We owe him a bottle, actually. He was the winner of the last Two Souls giveaway.
Yeah, I need some addresses so I can.
I'll get you with that. I'll get with you after this.
Yeah, we'll be sending you a double bourbon or a double oaked or a double barrel bourbon from Watershed.
Well, he's local, so if you just get it here,
that's a good point. Yeah,
then I can.
I'll just bring it to you next week.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you guys for watching and or listening. Remember, tell everyone you know about us. We need the likes.
And we got 8 more coming next week.
Yeah.
So
I'm like hammered.
This is gonna be so stupid.
So dumb.
But we have 8 more, and then we have a round of 4.
Yep.
And then I think after that we need to go on to the best high proof, and we need to go 120 and above.
Well, no.
But we'll
Let's
keep
work our way up. We'll go to 100 proof.
We'll keep it to a field of 8.
Yeah, we'll go to 100 proof for soft proof. All right. Well, thank you guys for tuning in. Remember, drink, share, enjoy.
Cheers, all.
Cheers.